Right friends, welcome back to the last session of this SBI PO interviews. This is the fourth session and we deliberated number of issues in the first three sessions. Let us look at the next one. What do you understand by monetary transmission? I have already told you in the third lecture that when the Reserve Bank of India is reducing the repo rate, it reduced from 8% to 6% during the past 20 months or so, and when it is reducing the repo rate, when the interest rate structure, or you can say the interest rates for lending, for the lending activities of the banks, when the interest rate structure changes accordingly, it is known as monetary transmission. So, we are talking about MCLR. MCLR is to be reduced substantially when the repo rate is reduced by Reserve Bank of India. That is the meaning of monetary transmission. But frankly speaking, initially this monetary transmission could not take place. Subsequently, after lot of nudging by the Reserve Bank of India, to some extent this monetary transmission took place. So, MCLR, when it is reduced, when the repo rate is reduced, that is monetary transmission. The credit offtake from the banking system is far from satisfactory. Explain the reasons. The credit offtake, I will tell you, the credit offtake, that means the growth of credit from the banking system. It is known as credit offtake. So, credit offtake is normally expected to be 2 to 2.5 times of GDP growth. This previous quarter GDP growth was 5.7%, but prior to that normally GDP growth is 7%, or you can say around 7%. So, when the GDP growth is 7% into 2.5, the credit offtake is expected to be around 17% or at least 14-15%. But in the banking system, the credit offtake is not satisfactory. Some quarters it is coming 8%, some quarters it is coming 5%, and the worst thing is corporate loans. In fact, they are shrinking. Overall credit offtake is around 5% to 8%, which is not satisfactory. But the worst thing is corporate loans are shrinking further. So, these are the aspects which you should not miss. So, the reasons for credit offtake is not taking off properly or unsatisfactory credit offtake are, first one is we have already discussed in the third session, twin balance sheet problem. The balance sheets of both the banks as well as some of the corporates are in bad shape. Second thing is manufacturing is not taking off on the expected lines. Make in India program is not taking off on the expected lines, and there is not much demand for this corporate credit, or you can say the demand is more for retail loans. Somehow the retail loan credit offtake is somewhat satisfactory, but not the corporate loan takeoff, right. So, we have already discussed previously also, I am leaving here. This is another area which you should not miss. What do you understand by shell companies? These are frequently in the news. What is the reason? The reason is SEBI advised stock exchanges to initiate action against 331 suspect shell companies and banned them from trading. Subsequently, Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange moved 162 and 48 companies respectively to graded surveillance measure, or you can say GSM. These are moved to graded surveillance measure. So, some of the stocks based on the advice of Securities and Exchange Board of India, Bombay Stock Exchange, National Stock Exchange, they kept some of the stocks under graded surveillance mechanism or graded surveillance measure or GSM. So, what happens because of GSM? There will be several restrictions on the trading when the share is kept under graded surveillance measure. So, this is one point. Second point is, basic thing is, what do you understand by shell companies? In fact, in our country there is no clear definition of shell company, but as per the Securities Act of USA, a shell company is the one that has no or nominal operations and assets. I will tell you in a nutshell, this shell company can be opened when I am planning some business in the future. For mobilization of the funds, I can open shell company, and once my mobilization is completed, I can start the real company. So, the shell company purpose can be something different. So, the shell company should not have any active business operations or assets. It is established for some particular purpose, and that has to fulfill those conditions. This is the real definition of shell company, but the companies, what I mean to say is, shell companies can be legal, shell companies are not at all illegal if they do the right things. Shell companies, as a matter of fact, can be legal and they can do the legitimate business, but here you see legitimate business in the sense, I have already told you, they can be for particular purpose, they can mobilize money to start something, they should not have any active operations or assets, they can do these type of legitimate functions. But the point in our country sorry, more than 95% of shell companies are started with the intention of money laundering. In our country, probably 99% of the companies are started with the intention of money laundering. Money laundering means making the black money white. That means with the establishment of these shell companies, illegally earned money is made legal, and this is the normal modus operandi in our country. But in the examination, if a question is asked, you should have clear definition of what is a shell company and what are the activities in our country as far as shell companies are concerned. Sorry. What do you understand by universal basic income? It is universal basic income. That means recently this word, that is this term universal basic income, is in the news. The question here is, what do you understand by universal basic income? Nowadays job losses are taking place. There is no job security. We are not able to create proper pension system after retirement, and several people are suffering because of lack of jobs. Under these circumstances, this is the idea universal basic income, where each and every citizen of this country, after their birth, from certain age, they are entitled for particular amount. Whether you are rich, you are poor, it does not matter. The idea is universal basic income is universal, or you can say for each and every citizen of the country, and the main purpose is nowadays, because of job losses, because of the various uncertainties involved in the global economies, because of automation, because of several fourth generation industrial revolution, which does not require many jobs. Under these circumstances, the thought process is universal basic income. That means it is to be paid regularly, unconditionally to all the citizens of the country. So, that is the real meaning of universal basic income. Then a question may be asked whether it is feasible in India or not. It is not that easy to implement in India, because there are already several schemes are there, social security schemes are there. Now the government has to think about whether to close all these schemes, or universal basic income can be supplementary, or universal basic income can be only few individuals or certain sections of society. So, there are lot many things to be discussed. Here it is not easy to look at this universal basic income, because our population is around 130 crores. What do you understand by easy money policies of central banks? These are some of the central banks logos, and recently in the news you normally hear central banks across the world are following easy money policies. Easy money policies means the interest rate structure is kept abysmally low. Then quantitative easing takes place. That means the central banks will purchase various bonds and they throw lot of money into the banking system. That means the lending rates should be abysmally low. That means efforts must be made by the banks to to lend more and more in the banking system. So, because of that intention, so as to propel growth, so as to increase inflation. In fact, inflation is the problem in developing countries, but in advanced countries lack of inflation is the problem. So, under these circumstances the policies followed by the central banks where they keep abysmally low interest rates on one side and at the same time they purchase bonds and asset backed securities, so as to infuse more and more liquidity into the system, and some of the times they go for helicopter money also by printing more money. So, these are all easy money policies adopted by the central banks. You have to answer this way. So, quantitative easing is reduction in the interest rates by increasing the money supply because of quantitative easing. It is nothing but purchasing the government bonds and increasing the liquidity in the system, then keeping the interest rates abysmally low for longer durations. That is also one of the easy money policy. Negative interest rate policies are being employed by some of the central banks. Now, reverse repo rate, for example, it will become negative in the advanced countries when negative interest rate policies are imposed, right. So, this is also the technique where the banks are forced to lend money for various activities. The intention is growth will take off if the banks lend money. Then helicopter money, this is printing more currency. Some of the central banks are resorting to this also. So, in a nutshell, all these policies are known as easy money policies. Please do not forget. What are the implications of farm loan waivers? Recently, farm loan waivers are taking place, and these are into the news. And what are the implications of farm loan waivers? You see, the first and the foremost implication is government can support the farmers in a different way. There are several drawbacks in the farm loan waivers. The first and the foremost is it erodes the credit culture. Credit culture is badly affected because of this farm loan waivers. Then loan waiving excludes agricultural laborers. In fact, agricultural laborers and the persons who take agriculture land on lease, normally they do not have institutional credit. So, the worst affected will be left over from these waivers. So, this is the biggest drawback in the loan waiver scheme. Then it will have long run consequences to the banking business. When the credit culture is gone, then what happens? It will have long run consequences to the banking business. It may result in exclusion and inclusion errors. So, here exclusion error means the right persons might have left out of the loans or institutional loans, and the wrong persons, or you can say rich persons, might have taken the loans. So, here this leads to inclusion and exclusion errors, and it provides only a partial relief to the indebted farmers, as about half of the institutional borrowing is for non-farm purposes. So, because of all these reasons, farm loans are not advisable. Government can support the farmers in a different way. You can answer on those lines. And the most important is it erodes the credit culture. This is the most important aspect one should not forget. What do you understand by Bharat 22? This is the fund which is planned, this is index based fund, exchange traded fund, whatever you call it, exchange traded fund, by bringing together 22 companies, out of which 19 are public sector companies, 3 are of course private companies, but the government's shareholding is there. So, by bringing together this 22 companies shares, by amalgamating them in particular ratio, you see weightage is given for each and every share. Here Larsen and Toubro, ITC, Axis Bank, these 3 are private sector companies, but government has got minority shareholding in these companies. So, by taking that minority shareholding and the shareholding in the public sector companies of 19 public sector companies, they are put together and they are amalgamated in a particular ratio. Here you see the weightage percentage is given. So, by amalgamating the shares of 22 companies, this Bharat 22 is formed. So, if you are purchasing Bharat 22 unit, that means you are purchasing the component of the companies in these ratio. That is the meaning of exchange traded fund or index fund, right. So, here this is one important aspect. So, now government is going for Bharat 22 and this is the way of this selling minority stake in the public sector companies, right. And another thing is, from interview perspective, one more aspect do not forget, recently Infosys as well as other software companies are going for this purchase of the shares from the open market. So, examination question may be asked that why the software companies are going for purchase of the shares from the open market or reducing the shares outstanding in the market, right. So, that is known as share buyback. What will happen if shares are bought back? When shares are bought back, what happens? The total outstanding shares in the market will come down. When the total outstanding shares of particular company are coming down in the market, there is every possibility that the share value may increase. When the companies are surplus, when the companies are flooded with surplus money, then when there is not much scope for expansion or acquisition, when there is not much scope for expansion or acquisition, when the companies are flooded with a lot of cash reserves, then companies undertake this share buyback. Other way is, when the companies are having lot of cash, they can declare dividend, but there are some taxation issues are there as far as the dividend is concerned. The best way is to spend that money by expanding the company, but now the software firms are not expanding much and now they are purchasing or resorting to share buyback. So, because of share buyback, then what happens? The share values of the outstanding shares will increase or expected to increase, you can say. So, this is about Bharat 22. Meanwhile, I explained share buyback also, right friends. What do you understand by the recent banking regulation amendment bill? I told you in the previous class, it empowers the Reserve Bank of India to give directions to the banks to act against the loan defaulters. So, Reserve Bank of India will give directions to the banks to act against the loan defaulters, and the bill seeks to amend the Banking Regulation Act of 1949, and this bill was already passed. So, by amending this Banking Regulation Act, Reserve Bank of India has got more powers. So, basically Reserve Bank of India has got more powers related to stressed assets, right. What is the meaning of stressed assets? I have given here. Stressed assets are the loans on which the borrower has defaulted or they have been restructured. It includes both not only default, but also restructuring also, both are classified as stressed assets. So, stressed assets include, first one is non-performing assets, second one is restructured loans. And here one more point I would like to tell you, what is the meaning of willful defaulting? Nowadays we are hearing that word. Willful defaulting means the borrower has got the means to pay back the loan. The borrower has got the means to pay back the loan, but deliberately he is not paying back. That is why under those circumstances a borrower can be declared as a willful defaulter, right. This word is quite often in the news, right. So, stressed assets means loans, non-performing assets plus restructured assets. Please do not forget. What do you understand by strategic disinvestment? It is quite often in the news. Whenever you are talking about disinvestment, it is of two types. One is a minority stake sale, like organizations BHEL, Coal India, NTPC. In such type of organizations, the government can sell 5% or 10% by keeping at least 51%. So, that is minority stake sale. And strategic sale is government should come out of management control or it will sell everything. Under these circumstances, it is known as strategic sale. Now, Air India is being put up for strategic sale as decided by the Union Cabinet, do not forget. So, government will come out of majority control in strategic sale of public sector undertakings. What do you understand by National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority? This is quite often in the news. National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority is recently in the news because it controlled the prices of knee implants. This is under the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. Few months ago, it capped the prices of stents, and now it capped the prices of these knee implants. It reduced by around 65 to 69%. Please do not forget. Some time back, it reduced the prices of stents also. What do you understand by Navika Sagar Parikrama? Navika Sagar Parikrama is circumnavigation. That means going through this Tarini. This is the ship Tarini. By this Tarini ship, 6 women contingent for the first time from India. 6 women contingent will go and come around the globe, which is known as Navika Sagar Parikrama. So, this is the first time from India all women contingent is going for the circumnavigation. They will be using this ship Tarini. So, this is your answer. Navika Sagar Parikrama I have given here. This is the first ever Indian circumnavigation of the globe by an all women group, and this is led by Vartika Joshi. What do you understand by FASTags? FASTag is based on radio frequency identification technology or RFID technology. So, what is the meaning? It is a reloadable tag, and whenever a vehicle is passing through the national highways, automatically deduction takes place on toll charges. So, it allows the vehicle to pass without stopping, and from today onwards on the national highways at least one counter at least one lane is made suitable for this vehicles to pass with fast tags. That means at least one line will be available for the vehicles to pass without stopping at the location. Right friends, we discussed number of issues during the 4 sessions. This one is the shorter session, and we discussed number of issues. Definitely we feel that they will be beneficial while you are facing group discussion or interview. and please stay with the Learning Space. Learning Space is meant for quality lectures. Have a nice day, wishing you all the best. Thank you once again. This is the Learning Space.